Good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. Peace through strength. There's no question it works. Lose the strength, and before long, the opportunists around the world try to take advantage of the weak. So tonight, we're going to talk about the current global threats and about how the new team at the White House is working hard to create a lasting peace. Obviously, that can't happen overnight. But President Trump has shown the rest of the world that he has not just a willingness, but a genuine desire to face down any and all of the bad guys. There's China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, and Iran's terrorist partners. Some of them are now working together as they target the United States. That's on top of the multiple threats here at home, with gangs who set up shop here when the last administration left the gates open. The new border czar has arrested nearly 40,000 of them and even captured the East Coast head of the MS-13 gang. But a single judge, as well as an appeal panel, has stopped the deportation flights. So President Trump is dealing with enemies close to home and far away. But they all want to see America fail. So tonight we're joined by a military man who's faced many of those challenges. Commander Kirk Lippold, retired from the Navy and always an American patriot. Welcome back, Commander.
Thank you, Alan. It's wonderful to be back on the show.
Well, the most immediate problem seems to be Iran's nuclear program. With the help that the Chinese gave Pakistan, Pakistan was able to share its nuclear program secrets with Iran. It's possible that Iran may be within just days of building a nuclear weapon, and we already know how they armed Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. With your experience in the region, do you think the president is going to be able to dial back any nuclear threat from Iran?
To be honest with you, Alan, I think at this point what the president is doing is absolutely spot on. He is sending signals back channel and outright to let the Iranians know they will not be allowed to possess the nuclear weapon. And at the end of the day, he is going to prepare, along with other nations in the region, especially Israel, to be able to confront Iran if required and to take out that nuclear program if that is the choice of last resort.
You know, most of the talk about nukes is about being attached to ballistic missiles. But couldn't a nuclear bomb also be carried in the back of a truck just to the place Iran would want to attack?
It would be very difficult to do simply because of the size and weight. When you've got a nascent or new program like Iran has, they don't have really the miniaturization technology, although they are trying to get there, which is why they ran that ballistic missile program in tandem. What I worry about is not just the fact that they may, in fact, create a nuclear weapon, but they also have the capability to just take that highly radioactive material and spread it in a ballistic missile as a dirty bomb. So we need to be prepared to tell the Iranian leadership, those mullahs, that you will not do anything or your nation will cease to exist. It is not just an issue of you getting a nuclear weapon. It's that we cannot allow you to threaten the region and threaten the world through actions that could destabilize the entire Middle East and, quite honestly, threaten the flow of oil from Saudi Arabia that not necessarily the United States may depend on these days with a drive toward energy dominance, but in fact threaten the rest of the world and economies around the world.
I heard former Governor Mike Huckabee at his confirmation hearing, where he made clear that Iran's leaders will only wake up when they feel the maximum economic pressure from the West. Listen to what he had to say.
The maximum pressure bankrupted the Iranians. It made it impossible for them to fund the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. They didn't have the money. When his term ended and President Biden took office, unfortunately, they relaxed some of those pressures. And the result was Iran had money again. They didn't use it to help their people. They used it to murder people in Israel through the Houthis, through Hezbollah, and through Hamas.
In addition to how to handle Iran, do you think Israel should totally eliminate Hamas and Hezbollah before they pull back?
While I think it is unfortunate that we have some of the second order effects that civilians are dying in the Gaza Strip, at the end of the day, Hamas must be totally destroyed and dismantled. They can have no future in Gaza, and they, as a terrorist organization, must be utterly destroyed to send a signal to the Iranian people that that will not be tolerated. By the same token, it's time to solve the problem, not the symptom. When we go after Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and other terrorist groups, those are symptoms of the problem, which is Iran. maybe it's time to start holding Iran directly accountable when these groups attack Israel.
What did you think of President Trump's suggestions about rebuilding Gaza with a completely different kind of a future?
I think it was a great approach, not because it may actually happen, but what it forced the region to do was come to grips with the Palestinian issue and realize that they all own it. The Middle East and every nation that is back there owns the problem of the Palestinians and the fact that they have embraced terrorism in order to try and further their goals of having a state for themselves. The reality of it is, if they want to become a recognized nation with a legitimate government, they have to renounce terrorism. They must have peace with Israel, and every country in the region, starting with the big guys like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, the UAE and Oman, must all contribute to create that stable environment where peace can exist and Israel is recognized with the right to exist and have a peaceful and prosperous future.
You know, I've read a bit about ISIS having something of a resurgence in Afghanistan. Do you know anything about that?
The main thing that's starting to happen is not only you're seeing it there, you're seeing it in some of the remnants up in Syria as well. When it comes to ISIS, it's like any terrorist group. We need to go after that leadership and again, take out the leadership and make sure that it cannot begin to grow and become a cancer in the region again, whether it's in Syria or whether it is in Afghanistan, which also we need to make sure and clear to the Taliban, any attempt to try and allow a terrorist group to be able to use Afghanistan as a base to recruit, train, equip, plan, and conduct terrorist operations will not be tolerated. And if you require us to come back, we can and will be willing to do it, but we won't stay. We will just destroy your ability to take care of your country and your people.
Well, Commander Lippold, please stay with us for another segment. There is so much more to discuss.
Absolutely.
And if you want to jump in on these national security issues, you can send me an email at comments@alanjacksonnow.com. As you know, we read them all. I'll be right back. We're back now with Kirk Lippold, the former commander of the USS Cole. The Democrats have been looking for any way they can to try to criticize President Trump. And unfortunately, the president's national security team gave them a handful of catnip. A reporter from The Atlantic was inadvertently added on a group message that was describing an attack on the Houthis in Yemen, the terror group that's been lobbing missiles at American and European cargo ships. Democrat Mark Warner, he got pretty wound up about it. Listen to his comments.
Classified information should never be discussed over an unclassified system. It's also just mind-boggling to me that all these senior folks were on this line and nobody bothered to even check. Security Hygiene 101. Who are all the names? Who are they? Well, it apparently included a journalist.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Although no one was put in harm's way, clearly it was a mistake that no one wanted to see happen, most of all the president. That said, who hasn't at one time or another sent an email to someone by mistake? From your point of view, will this incident lead to any long-term damage?
In this case, I don't think it will lead to any long-term damage. What it does provide for the administration is an opportunity to learn. Because at the end of the day, while there may have been no classified information per se discussed in that each individual segment may have been unclassified, what you have to worry about in an operational security environment is the sum total of what may have been discussed, in fact, may have in the aggregate created a classified situation. I think number one, this should be a very telling point that unless you have a communication system capable of being used by government personnel that has been vetted by the National Security Agency to hold conversations from unclassified all the way up through top secret into compartmented information, that is the only system that these political appointees should be using. To be using a commercial system like Signal is wholly inappropriate. I think they've learned their lesson, and it is time to learn from it, get operational security at the forefront of everyone's minds, and then move forward. I think right now we don't need is the attacks that we are seeing, where on one side you have the Democrats screeching for heads on a platter, yet they were silent in the past on whether it was Hillary Clinton or whether it was Lloyd Austin being AWOL for days. At the end of the day, I think the administration has learned its lesson and that Pete Hegseth and others are better for it and are going to do better for our nation in the future.
You were the commander of the USS Cole when it was attacked by Al-Qaeda, the precursor of ISIS, some 25 years ago now. It makes me think that while they might change their names, terrorists are always going to be with us and always trying to attack the United States. Is the threat any different now, or do we have a better handle on where they are and how to go after their leadership?
Well, Alan, I think we've clearly learned a lot of lessons, because when you look at the sum total of what's going on around the world, probably in conjunction with other nations and their intelligence services, we are able to much more quickly and effectively take out the heads of these terrorist organizations. And that means that we can disable them quicker. It makes them move more often. The more they have to move or react, the more we can detect where those movements come from and what their planning is for the next operation, and try to prevent it so that it doesn't even happen, and then continue to dismantle them by killing the leadership as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Well, let's move to Russia. Our annual threat assessment says that Putin views its war with Ukraine as a proxy war with the West. Do you have any idea if Mr. Putin still considers Ukraine just a start and that he'll try to march further into Europe?
I have no doubt in my mind that President Putin does not consider Ukraine to be a legitimate country or government, and that he is going to work to destabilize them and eventually take it over. At the end of the day, I know that a lot of people have raised the issue regarding Ukraine, the corruption, all the problems they dealt with for years, but this is how I look at it. If I have a choice between dealing with corrupt, I'll gladly do that, because you can reform corrupt. When you look at Putin and Russia, you look at evil. Evil cannot be reformed or redeemed, and we need to view our approach to Russia through that lens. The Europeans themselves have put the United States and the world into this position by their failure to live up to their NATO treaty commitments over decades and multiple administrations. I quite frankly think that it is outstanding of President Trump and Vice President Vance to force the Europeans to start to live up to those commitments and start taking care of their security instead of living under our umbrella of security that we have bankrolled for decades. They can stand on their own 2 feet. They have the economies to do it, especially when you look at Germany, Italy, Spain, and France, and they can make that entire continent safe. The Baltics understand that. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, they know what the threat is because they've lived under it, and now they're next to it, and they see Russia for what it is, evil.
Does President Trump have any real leverage in trying to get Putin to the bargaining table for a ceasefire?
Absolutely he does, because I think that at the end of the day, Alan, he will be able to put sanctions into place, employ those with other nations, including Iran, including China. North Korea is going to be difficult, and they're already providing those thousands of troops that are quite frankly being slaughtered, and deservedly so. But I think we can still continue to force Russia to come to the bargaining table. Let's start going after these unsanctioned and illegal oil transfer shipping that is out there and take them off the high seas. Take away the ability for Russia to put money into the bank that allows them to continue to bankroll it. By the same token, again, going back to Europe, why did they continue to buy Russian oil and gas for a couple of years after the invasion started, when it supposedly is a threat? The Europeans need to grow up and realize that this threat is real, and they need to take responsibility for thwarting it. They need to take the lead, not the United States anymore.
Well, one question as we wrap up. Let me see if we can end with something positive and get your opinion on how much safer we are now versus what was going on in the Biden years. I have to believe we're in much better hands, even with so much of the world stirred up as it seems to be.
Absolutely. The United States is safer today for one reason right off the bat, and that is we have secure borders again. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know who is coming into your country, you don't have a country. And when you look at what President Biden allowed to happen by allowing millions of unvetted people to come into our nation, military-aged males by the thousands in our country today. And now we have to begin the difficult process of figuring out who they are, where they are, what they're doing, and then figure out how to get them deported as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Well, Commander Lippold, thank you for your time today. I hope you'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. It'd be a pleasure to be back on. Thank you, Alan.
Well, I'll be back with some thoughts of my own when we return. I'm grateful that my friend Mike Huckabee was nominated to be the U.S. Ambassador to Israel. He's a Christian man who loves the state of Israel and knows the biblical perspective regarding Israel. He's also a man who's not afraid to speak the truth, and he calls out lies and deception. The legacy media's messaging regarding the Middle East has been so left-leaning, so pro-Muslim. They say Israel needs to make room, make peace with people who subscribe religiously to a violent ideology. I saw the videos of October the 7th. They abused wives and daughters while their husbands watched, and then they murdered the husbands as the wives and daughters were forced to watch. They set babies on fire. They have a legitimate peace deal between Israel and Hamas. You must have people with integrity to negotiate, and Hamas doesn't meet that standard. Lebanon today is devastated. Syria is in ruins. Iraq is undone. Jordan is very fragile. Libya remains in transition, and Iran is the global sponsor of terrorism, and they're desperate to acquire nuclear weapons. Regarding the China threat, Trump is taking a fresh approach through tariffs, making moves to secure the Panama Canal. Decisions, counter-decisions. We're beginning to see the Ukrainian conflict move toward a resolution. I thank God for that good news. But here in America, we aren't facing the same type of conflicts that we're seeing around the globe. You might not see a war zone within your community, but make no mistake, spiritual warfare is in every home, business, school, and church building, and they're just as real as the physical ones. We have to choose the truth every day at our kitchen tables, and it'll make our nation more secure. If we'll do that, I promise there's more reasons for hope than despair. When we return, I'm going to read some of your comments. Thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us. Your emails are an important part of the program. A pastor from Tennessee wrote, "I don't condone the recent possible misstep of accidentally including a news correspondent in a group meeting of the White House. However, I am irritated at the reaction of the Democratic Party, who never held Hillary Clinton accountable for her emails and computer use and excused former President Biden for his possession of classified documents in his garage. The hypocrisy is blinding. You have said that evil doesn't play fair. What should our response be to those who have standards for thee, but not for me? Thanks for all you do." Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. Let's do everything in our power to see people that practice that kind of hypocrisy never have access to authority over our lives again. If we'll do that, it'll be a safer place for all of us. Gail emailed, "Thank you, Pastor Jackson, for all you do. You're an inspiration for all who hear you. I agree we need to stand up to all the evil nonsense being pushed on us. We do. We're not powerless. If we'll start at our kitchen table and our holiday table in those friend circles, we can be difference makers. We've all got a sphere of influence." Stanley from Nebraska wrote, "I love your show and the teaching of Jesus Christ. We're alive for a special time in history, and I'm so happy every day wondering what the Lord will do not only for America, but the world. It's a golden time. What do you think?" Well, Stanley, I couldn't agree more. I think God called us to this unique season in history, far beyond politics or even culture wars. God, in His wisdom and providence, looked across the span of time and chose us for this unique time when communication and travel are so available. The globe's very small. There's really no language barriers anymore. And God has called us. It was a golden age long before President Trump came up with the label, and we've got an assignment. Finally, James S. wrote, "Arrest the judges and attorneys that argue or interrupt the deportation of illegal aliens. Charge them with accessory to the crimes of those being deported." Well, I don't know about the legality of that. It's enough to make us want that to happen. We have a new way for you to contact us. Now you can submit your comments and questions directly on our website. Just go to ajnow.com, where you can watch our latest episodes with links to YouTube and TBN. Scroll down a little further and you can submit your feedback right there. Your comments and questions, they do a lot to shape this show. I'm Alan Jackson. You have a wonderful evening.